Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Collin from Lubbock Christian. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
No, I appreciate you being here. I've Lubbock is not a city in Texas I have actually visited before, so I'm interested to hear all about it. But let's start really off on the recruiting side. But you're fairly new to the school, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I actually accepted the job about 3 months ago. So yeah, totally new to Lubbock, totally new to Lubbock Christian, and yeah, it's been awesome so far. The people here are wonderful, most friendly people I've ever met, honestly.
Well,
Um,
that's good to
so
hear. Well, so some of these questions, I guess, will be kind of what you're going to do in the future, or maybe you can lean back on what you did at your previous coaching jobs. But for you as a Division II school, when are you really starting to get focused on talking to players? When are you hearing from players? Kind of when does your recruiting process really start?
yeah, I'd say a lot of times, hearing from players is contingent on them, obviously. So we get emails from sophomores and even freshmen. But we really probably start focusing in and keying in on players come junior year. Is where we probably really start, I would say, identifying and saying, hey, these are some kids we really want to target. Um, and then obviously comes senior year, we're trying to lock it in. But obviously too with us, we do a lot of international recruiting, so it kind of looks a little bit different sometimes. You're keying in on some of the players you want domestically that you think are at the level that can play Division II soccer, and then we also spend a lot of time um, trying to scout players internationally through agencies and things like that, but then also being able to go and be able to get eyes on players from countries that we feel like are good fits and things like that for LCU.
Okay. So in terms of domestic recruiting, how much of it do you think is you, you know, going and finding a player or hearing from a club coach or there's somebody that's brought to your attention versus a student reaching out and building your pipeline that way? What do you think is that maybe the mix there?
Yeah, I would say with the domestic kids, I rely pretty heavily on club coaches that I know reaching out, obviously, because I built the pipeline there. I have a mutual trust. Um, but I spend a lot of time out recruiting. I go into showcases and things like that, especially obviously the ECNL and MLS Next. And so we will spend a lot of time at those events, obviously to be able to see for ourselves and then also be able to see some kids maybe that have reached out to us, because obviously at your program you want guys that want to be at your university. And so sometimes, there's players that'll reach out to you and you watch them on film and you go, hey, that's a pretty good player, and we like what we saw. And so then going and getting to see them is obviously huge for us. Um, but you also get those emails where there's a lot of kids that maybe just don't understand the level or whatever, and you just can't pursue. So there's it's a little bit of a mixture, I'd say, of all that a little bit. But I firm believer in definitely going out, getting your eyes on the players. And almost every email we get, we do read and we do look through just to see, because you never know, you know what I mean? And we're our coaching staff is very much so like, hey, let's try not to leave any rock unturned. Let's figure it out. Let's find the diamonds in the rough. Let's doesn't matter where they play. Let's get eyes on them, and let's give them a chance. And if we think that they're good enough, then we'll definitely pursue them.
So you mentioned ECNL and MLS Next. Are there, but I mean, I'm assuming you're going to those events, but are there other events or are there other leagues that you tend to look at as well?
Yeah, we'll spend a lot of time, especially in Texas. We'll spend a lot of time at like the Lone Star event because it's quite large. Sports Source is another one that's quite large. When I was coaching at a Division III school before, and obviously those were huge events for that. I think still going to them, there's still players there on teams that have the potential to be able to play Division II soccer. And so, like I said, it's important for us to leave no rock unturned, and to be able to compete in this conference, I think you have to be that way. And so, trying to find those kids, and I'm also a firm believer in just I grew up overseas my whole life, so I love having international guys. It's actually probably what I'm more comfortable with. Um, but I think that there's a lot of value in the mixing of cultures. You know what I mean? And I think having domestic guys on your team is super important to the success, even for an international guy. They have family here, and your family becomes family. Um, so, yeah, recruiting domestically is super important to us. And it's also, like I said, not leaving a rock unturned, and we go into these events. And but Lone Star is a big one. Sports Source is a big one. The events that they host at MoneyGram are big ones as well here in Texas.
Okay. What about camps? How do they fit into your whole recruiting process? Do you have them there at your school? Do you and your staff work others? How does that work?
Yeah. So we do work other camps. Part of that whole theory, just don't leave a rock unturned. And for some of the coaches, it's an opportunity also to make a little extra money. But the reality for us for our camps that we're going to be hosting here is we don't want to just make it a thing where we're trying to create revenue for the program, but it's more of an actual opportunity to identify players. Um, Obviously, we open it up for people because I think that's the right thing to do, and it's a fair thing to do for people to have an opportunity to come and play if that's what they want to do. But we really try and key in on the guys that, hey, we think this kid might be a good fit for us athletically, and academically, and fit well at LCU. And then we'll try and bring them in, and let them, experience a university, have a training session, be able to train, um, and show what they can do, and things like that. But we really want it to be more of a personal thing rather than just, hey, let's just invite 1,000 kids and collect the money, and then at the end of the day say, hey, we're not really interested in people. I don't really think that's fair to the kids, really, if you don't have any
Yeah,
interest.
absolutely. Well, whether it's at a showcase or a camp or anything, what are kind of the key things that you're looking for when you're evaluating players to decide whether you want to, recruit them further, whether it's on the field attributes or off the field stuff?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost is just high character guys. Guys that you think that when the times get tough, they're going to keep competing, and they're going to keep finding a way to try and be successful. Guys that, when they score a goal, they celebrate with their teammates. It's not about themselves. Um, and then obviously on the academic side, high academics. Our team has a really high team GPA, and it's been traditionally that way. Um, so just guys that are going to fit that, they're going to make us better, and they're going to push that as well, and they care about that. And then in terms of just ability and talent and things like that, obviously results matter. And so you want to bring in guys that are going to compete immediately, and they're going to challenge for positions, and they're going to push the guys that have been here to be better. So I'd say soccer, just having a high soccer IQ, guys that are motors, like they just don't stop. That those are part pieces for us, I think, that are important in our philosophy and things like that. Um, so yeah, just good high character people, care about their academics, people that have a growth mindset and just want to get better and better, coachable, but solid IQ and good technical players that are also kind of blue collar. I think that's important, and it's something that a lot of players lack.
Yeah,
If it's an intrinsic thing to decide, hey, I'm going to track back, or I'm going to put in a tackle, or I'm going to work hard. So finding those types of players is really important to us.
yeah. Well, when you find some players, and whether you get them to camp or other ways to get them, you know eh, checking out the school, kind of what's your guys' process around official visits? How many kids you usually bring in? What kind of expenses are usually taken care of there for you guys? Is it more unofficial visits? How does that whole process work for you
Yeah,
all?
to be honest with you, we do a lot of unofficial visits. They're just so much simpler logistically, and just everything involved in it, how long they can stay on campus, and just things like that. We can do official visits, like we can cover the cost and things like that for a lot of the stuff involved. But we tend to stay with unofficial visits for the most part, especially with our recruiting internationally a decent amount. Obviously, a lot of guys aren't visiting. So what we do is we have like PowerPoints and videos and things that we really try and give them a good understanding of the university and things like that. Um, But yeah, we can definitely do them. I would say that, we're not opposed to doing them by any means. But it's not something that we do a ton just because it's not really a necessity, I guess.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Well, you mentioned giving people an idea about the school. So let's talk a little bit more about the school. Some I know you're fairly new to it, but I guess in your short time there, can give me some of the awesome things about LCU that maybe I'm not going to find just by clicking around the website.
Yeah, I'll be very honest with you. I've worked at a lot of universities in different positions, and I'd say that the people here are just what make it what it is. You know what I mean? The people are so welcoming. And so kind, and everyone here is willing to do anything to help you, and it's genuine. Like, it's not just saying it, it's not just a facade. If you really need help with anything from homework or running to Walmart for an international guy, or whatever, people will drop what they're doing and they'll do that for you. And I'll be honest, like, to be able to bring the players that we bring in, especially our international guys, the amount of work it takes to make that a possibility, with visas and everything like that. As a coach, you are 100% dependent upon an awesome international admissions person that can guide these guys through these process. And we have that, and she comes to all of our games. She's at every single one of our games. She's the first person to help them get their social security card to be able to get jobs. And I mean, it's genuine. People really care about you. Now, the results matter. You know what I mean? Like, we want to win, we want to be successful, but it's incredible to have that support, beyond just you as a coach trying to figure out all these pieces and running around trying to figure it out. You have people that are really good at what they do. So that's a big thing. I think that the people here are just incredible. We won our first a home game last night, and it was super special, and it was cool just to see, like, these people that have played these parts in all these guys' lives, getting them here, reaching out and saying, "Hey, it was really fun watching you guys play. It was fun seeing this guy score," or whatever. That was special. You know what I mean? Like, they don't just get them here and then it's like, we're done. It's they get them here and your family, and we try and help you. And I think that's what makes the place special.
No, that's great. Well, it's also about what happens in the classroom, right? So how do your student athletes kind of really balance the rigors of athletics and academics, and kind of what support systems are there in place at LCU to help them with that?
Yeah, we have tutoring, obviously, that they can go get. We have a rule. It's simple, but we have a rule on our team that if you're a freshman in your first semester, you have to do 3 hours of study hall, and we have a study hall room in our office area here. So we can help monitor that a little bit, check their grades, things like that. And then we also have a rule that anybody below a 3.0 GPA, cumulative GPA, has to also do study hall if you're a returner. So as long as you're above a 3.0, we kind of trust you and we let you do your thing. And if you drop below that, you do study hall again, and we try and supply you with it or help you with a tutor or whatever. Because obviously that's a big reason why you should be here if you're at this university. But yeah, I mean, there's access to everything. I mean, people, and like I said, the people are what make it, and they'll put down whatever they're doing. Even professors that are teaching the class will say, "Hey, come see me," and I'll stop doing whatever I'm doing to help you try and be successful.
That's great. Well, you're obviously you've had the first game of the season under your belt. Congrats on the dub. But can you give me what a typical week's going to look like for a player during the season in terms of when's class, when's practice, when are games, meals, just kind of what does it all look like for an average week per se?
Yeah, so this year was a festival year for us, and so obviously, so we got to come back a little bit earlier, quite a bit earlier than even usual. So preseason, we did 2 practices a day, morning and evening. And then once school starts, I think this is where you're asking me the question more so, is once school starts, we go to 1 practice a day, and we usually train in the evening at the end of the day, just because of class schedules and things like that. Obviously, Texas a little cooler in the evening, which is which is nice. Um, and so we the guys usually go to class throughout the day, and then in the evening we train. And there's a time there before practice where they go spend time with the trainer and do recovery stuff and rehab and all that type of stuff. um, and then we usually in season are lifting 1 day a week. And what we've been trying to do is the day after a game, we take all the guys in, we do a workout in the gym, and then the guys who play, we have GPS trackers and stuff so we can see kind of how much their legs have been taking. So what we'll do is we'll have those guys do more of a recovery type day, and then the guys who haven't been playing, obviously we want them to sustain, their fitness and things like that, and you're missing out during games. So we'll usually do some kind of fitness as well with those guys, and then we'll usually let them play and get after it a little bit, since they didn't play as much in the game. But yeah, Monday, Tuesdays usually training, Wednesday's a game, Thursday is usually kind of a recovery day. Friday, we kind of work through what we're going to do on Saturday's game, obviously, with playing 2 days a week. And then Sunday, we give them the day off just to rest and recover and get ready to go for the next week.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the soccer side. So, is there a roster size, an ideal roster size that you're trying to hit every year?
Yeah, so we want to keep our roster right around 28, 30. We're not doing the whole like JV reserve team thing, which I really like. It lets you have a personal relationship with your players, which I think is super important. And so yeah, we that's our ideal. College soccer with just the rigors of it, playing 2 games, 2 games a week, and it's such a short season, and you're practicing a lot. You do have injuries sometimes and things, so you do keep that in the back of your head, like how can we make sure that we're deep enough? And so I think that number puts you in a good spot to where if you have some injuries, you can still play 11 aside, and you can still do some things you might not be able to do if you had a smaller roster. But yeah, I think the bigger roster size has become a little bit difficult. And I think it just changes the whole dynamic of the culture. And I think culture is everything. I think sometimes you can win games that you probably shouldn't win. You know what I mean? Just based off culture and guys that are bought in and they care and yeah. So I'd say that's 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 kind of our philosophy, I guess, on that.
Yeah, no, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask the question on most parents' mind, and that's unfortunately around dollars and cents, right? Um, can you just give me a general overview of what kind of the financial aid situation is like at the school with athletic money, with academic scholarships, other scholarships, grants, and kind of things? What's an average player kind of looking at when they walk in?
Yeah, it varies quite a bit on our roster. Um, tuition is around 30, something like that, thousand. And so for a private school, that's probably pretty reasonable. I mean, there's a lot of private schools that are 40 plus. And so we're also able to stack our athletic with our academic and some other scholar, like FAFSA money and things like that, which is obviously a huge help. But we have guys paying from zero all the way to 20,000 a year. Just to kind of depends on where you fall on the spectrum. Um, so I would say, we have 8 scholarships is kind of what we're given, and full is not, or fully funded and
Yeah,
considered fully funded in Division Two's 9. So we're well supported in terms of the aid we have and things like that. And then obviously the being able to stack it's a huge blessing. It allows it to go a little further and things like that. So
sure. Okay. Well, how, when you had like say you got a game in last night. So if I pulled one of your players aside, how would they describe kind of your style of coaching and the team style of play?
I think they would say that first off, man, we're cared about here, whether we're number one player on that roster or all the way down to 30. We're cared and we're valued and we're wanted. Um, and then I would say that I think they'd say, off the field, a fun person to hang around and be around and interact with. But once we get on the field and we cross the lines, like it's time for business. And so I think they would say pretty intense and pretty, keeping the standards of our program high. And, I require a lot out of the guys and push them quite hard. Because I always want them to get better, and you want to push them to the every day. You want to make them a little bit better. And so I would say intense. I think too that I'm sometimes I don't know when to shut it off. You know what I mean? So like I'll go home and I'll think about it, and I'll stay up later than I probably should, just thinking about the game. What could I have done better? Um, But I think the big thing is the guys know that we love them, we care about them, and that's regardless of where they stand on the roster and athletic ability. But when we get out there, it's business and it's team first, and we're gonna make decisions based off how can we perform at our best.
Wait, well, besides, you mentioned it earlier with with camps and stuff, but your staff. So can you kind of give me a little bit more about your staff? How big is it? What role does everybody play? What other support staff does the athletic department have that soccer utilizes? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I have two coaches that are on the day-to-day coaching with me. Jonathan Woods, and he played here, was a captain here for 4 years actually. Very good player and very good leader. Excellent coach. So he's involved in a lot, especially with recruiting and the day-to-day and film and getting prep for practice, and does a lot with that. And then we have a volunteer assistant coach who actually spends a lot of time here as well, Jose Alvarado, and he does a lot with our goalkeepers, specifically, and then he's a really good soccer mind as well. So he spends a lot of time talking with the guys individually and things like that. And then we kind of have a unique thing on our coaching staff. I added a guy named Dean Mushombangabo, who's our director of discipleship, and we're obviously a faith-based school. And so we want our guys to grow, you know what I mean? And you don't have to be a Christian or anything to come to LCU, which is beautiful. But we want to challenge guys to just think and ask good questions. And he plays a huge part in that for our team. And we usually meet with him about once every 2-3 weeks. And he'll challenge our team and give a short little message. And he does a lot of things, like he works at a local church right up the road, and he'll come and get coffee with the guys and just hang out and chat with them. He graduated from LCU, so he's done it. He's actually even taught Bible classes at LCU. So a lot of guys that are taking, Bible classes and things like that, he can spend time with them and kind of help them and guide them through some of those classes, which is a huge blessing. And then we have Ashton, who works with us as well, and she's an assistant on the softball team, but she's also a strength and conditioning coach. So during the off season, she does a lot of stuff with strength and conditioning for our program as well. So that's kind of probably our main core group, other than like SIDs and athletic directors and things like
Sure.
that.
Okay. Well, you've given us a bunch of info, covered a lot of ground, but I always like to end these with what didn't we cover? What else would you like anybody to know, whether it's about the program, about the school, about the recruiting process, or anything else that you think would be helpful for folks out there?
Yeah, I mean, the three big things I'd say, I guess, just pop into my head immediately, is, for the kids, the kids that want to be recruited and care to be recruited. First off, I guess, just to find the right fit for them. Don't just look at Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, NAI. Like, figure out really where you fall, in those categories, and find a place that you're truly going to be happy, even if soccer didn't exist. The second thing I think is, just monitor, especially with the recruiting side, monitor your social media and things like that. Coaches check that; they care about that. They want to know, regardless of Christian school or not, they want to know that they're getting a good player that's not going to embarrass the program. So do things the right way there. And then I'd say, in terms of recruiting, I'd say, you do your recruiting, like, you communicate with the coach. I don't want to talk to parents. I don't want to deal with that. I mean, obviously the financial side of maybe, but the main recruiting should be between me and you. And I'd say that's a big one, obviously. So those are the big things that I would probably harp on.
I couldn't agree more. Well, Coach, really appreciate the time. Wish you the best of luck in this first full season. Glad you got that first win in the books, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. And
Yeah.
and hopefully you can bring home that conference championship. So, Coach, thanks again. And if you're ever down in Bradenton recruiting down here in Florida, give me a shout.
All right. Sounds good. Enjoy the
All
weather. All
right. Thanks.
right. Appreciate it.
Bye bye.